The two most effective tools for gaining muscle mass and strength, the 90-degree eccentric isometric, and wait for it, steroids. Steroids are the genesis of the modern fitness era, and it's inspired more people to work out and improve their physiques than any other influence we know of. Anabolic steroids were first synthesized in the 1930s and were present in bodybuilding as early as the 1950s. However, both existed more on the fringes of society. The crossover of bodybuilding into the mainstream can be traced to one moment in 1977, thanks to Arnold in Pumping Iron, which is a documentary that highlights the bodybuilding scene of the 1970s. This created a cultural phenomenon and influenced a huge population to get into fitness, greatly increasing the popularity of contests like Mr. Olympia. This led to the mass monster era of bodybuilding, with Lee Haney and eventually Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, who developed some of the most massive physiques of all time and ultimately inspired millions to get to the gym. But these results didn't just stay isolated to bodybuilding, as they made their way into professional sports and athletics, such as all-star athletes like Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, and Barry Bonds. By all measures, each of these figures had a profound impact on bodybuilding and sports. And I recognize this because these individuals even inspired me in my entrance into the fitness industry. Now, if we fast forward to today, steroids have become common to say the least and have continued to yield incredible results for its users. Not only has it brought jaw-dropping physiques to much larger populations, it's become a highway to huge followings, inspiring millions of more people down a path to fitness, and as a byproduct, generated sales of programs, sponsorships, collaborations, and merchandise, minting countless millionaires. But for me, I don't use steroids. Since I got into the fitness industry over 21 years ago, my main priority then and still is to get people healthy. Yes, I want to help people build as much muscle mass and strength and explosive power as possible, and the 90-degree eccentric isometric method is set up for that. It helps to maximize and optimize all of those characteristics. But the main attribute of the 90-degree eccentric isometric method that I use for my athletes and clients is it optimizes our health and physiological function. Taking steroids and advocating for other people to use steroids totally goes against everything I believe, everything that I stand for, and everything that I've built my business on these last 2 decades. With that said, there's an important video that just came out that I want you guys to watch because it's going to lead us into the next segment of today's video.
I don't know this gentleman, but he has a great physique. He posted what it looks like to have 14 years of consistent lifting as a natural lifter. The key word there is natural. He got absolutely torn apart in these comment sections because in this day and age of lighting and filters and the perfect pump and performance enhancing drugs have completely skewed people's perception of what a great physique is. This is coming from a guy who has done loads of performance enhancing drugs, aka steroids, in my day, and I can tell you this much. We live in a very distorted reality of what is in good shape. That dude is in killer shape. That's also not right after the gym with a pump, with the perfect lighting. That was raw, real, just standing in his kitchen. Shame on you guys who left comments like this. Bro was doing something wrong. 2-pound weights don't count. I mean, you look good, but this is sad. You should have more definition. Bro, you must have been sleeping in the gym without working out, or you ignored the food.
So this guy, Brad Jensen, who's the one who's doing the reaction to this man's physique, he articulated this perfectly. It's why I wanted to show this to you all. What he's pointing out here is something that's pretty obvious, but I think a lot of people have not been picking up on it, especially over the last, I'd say 5 years especially. We really do have this distorted perception of what a good physique is because so many of these top influencers on Instagram and on YouTube and TikTok, they're all using gear. They're all using performance enhancing drugs, PEDs, testosterone replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy. So here's the main issue here, guys. I've been in this field for over 20 years, and I can honestly say this is the worst and most rampant I've ever seen this topic of steroid use and over acceptance and kind of this over promotion of steroids. It's become so widespread in the industry that everyone thinks it's totally acceptable and totally fine to be using steroids, and it's become so commonplace that it's now the new norm. And unfortunately, what that's done is that when you have guys like myself who are all natural and other influencers we're all natural and we start advocating methods that we know work, you see all these people commenting saying, well, how come the methods aren't producing more muscle mass? How come there's a lot more influencers out there who have twice as much muscle as you do, and they're demonstrating their expertise and showing much better results with their athletes and clients? And as I mentioned earlier, the main issue here is it's setting unrealistic expectations. And so I want to kind of check out a few of my videos that I've posted on this topic of advocating against steroids and instead using proper training methods to produce optimal natural results, which I believe will help people avoid steroid usage. Because if you're getting decent results with your training and you're doing it all naturally, a lot of people might not actually use steroids. But if you're frustrated that you're not getting any results in the gym and you're just coming to a complete standstill in your training, then I can understand why some people might want to go that route. Personally, I would never do that. I would never advocate for steroids. But anyways, let's check out a few of these videos where I talk about this steroid topic.
More and more lifters are resorting to steroids to help them overcome poor results associated with full range of motion. 90-degree training ensures continuous progress without drugs.
Yeah, so you get the gist of this. A lot of people say it's clickbait. It's not. I'm actually trying to help people avoid using steroids, and I'm promoting the usage of going all natty or all natural, where you're not using any PEDs or performance enhancing drugs. And I do believe that if people trained properly, they would be less prompted to feel like they have to use steroids. Over the last decade, especially over the last 5 years, social media has pushed fitness content to the front page of social consciousness. But why have steroids stolen the spotlight and rewarded its users with fame and fortune? No one has an exact answer for this, but here are some of my own personal thoughts on this topic. So as we already said, steroid usage has become widely accepted and oftentimes praised in the fitness industry, to the point that most of your top fitness influencers are using steroids or TRT or a combination of both. You have very few all natural or natty fitness influencers like myself. You might even recognize some of these names in the industry, from Larry Wheels, Chris Bumstead or C-Bum, who's won multiple Mr. Olympias, Sam Solik, the Trend Twins, Derek from More Plates, More Dates, and you even have celebrities like Joe Rogan and Jeff Bezos openly talking about their TRT usage. What's interesting is you're even seeing actors come out mentioning their usage of TRT, like Alan Richardson, who plays Jack Reacher, has an amazing physique, but he's talked about his use of testosterone. So this has definitely kind of perpetuated this wide acceptance of steroid usage, not just in society, but especially in social media. What's also interesting is that social media has become one of the main ways to make money in the fitness industry and become a fitness influencer, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. You see a lot of people who really don't have a great education or maybe a huge background or experience or expertise in exercise science, but they're able to make a living quite substantially on social media just by showcasing their physique. A lot of people see this as, wow, I have to take steroids or I have to reach a certain size or a certain level of muscularity in order to become successful. And it's understandable in some regards, because if you feel like size and a great physique is your gateway into success in this industry, then a lot of people are going to go to any and all means necessary in order to build a great physique. But unfortunately, this isn't something that's optimal for people's health. And a lot of people in their 20s and even teenagers now, we're starting to see a pretty rampant usage of steroids because they're trying to become these lofty fitness influencers. Now, a lot of folks, especially younger influencers, will often justify their steroid usage, saying that it's a form of TRT or testosterone replacement therapy under the supervision of a doctor. But in reality, for most individuals, that's just another form of steroid usage, especially if they already have decent levels of testosterone, which is usually around 300 to 1,000. One of my biggest fans, Dr. Mike Israetel, actually highlights this pretty well in a video. We're going to watch this real quick and see what he has to say.
I'm on TRT is true for many people who say it, but for many people in the fitness industry, it's a sweet way to tell people that you're not on steroids, where you're just on steroids, because they'll get a legal TRT prescription from the doctor. Their dealer fills in the rest. Normally they're on TRT, but they go through multiple month phases during the year where they go on super physiological doses. So like, you see their profile, they have 50 abs, they're eating cheeseburgers, amazing. It's TRT. No, it's not. That's primobolan at 600 milligrams a week additional to that.
So as you can see, there's kind of these mini loopholes that people will use, saying, oh, I'm not taking steroids or I'm not taking anything illegal. I'm just using TRT, and it's still steroids. It's just a kind of a different way to get around it. Now, inevitably, here's what this leads to. You have these social media influencers who have pretty amazing physiques because they're using such high levels of steroids and PEDs and TRT that any type of training protocol they do is going to elicit pretty substantial results in terms of muscle mass and strength, and they're going to have decent physiques no matter what. And they start perpetuating and promoting these crazy off-the-wall contortionistic exercises where they're doing bicep curl with a single cable grip, and they're kind of moving their body one way and twisting so they can get a bigger stretch. And you get the idea, and you see this a lot when you go to the gym. You'll see a lot of young people who are trying to build muscle. They're doing all these unique isolation movements because they're just trying to emulate these top fitness influencers. Again, in their mind, they see these guys who have amazing physiques doing these little fluffy exercises, thinking, okay, well, this is what it takes to get a great physique. It's not. Like I said, when you're using high levels of performance enhancing drugs, and if you have good genetics on top of that, anything works. But for most folks, if you're going all natural, you're doing it the natty way, the optimal way, you're going to have to resort to more effective methods, which means heavy barbell movements, heavy compound exercises, barbells, dumbbells, cables, lower reps, controlling the movement and using proper form. And that's going to build much more muscle growth. And as I mentioned and alluded to earlier, if those individuals in the gym actually did that, they might see the results that they're looking for and they wouldn't have to resort to steroids. Additionally, even if you see some of these all natural influencers who claim they've never used steroids and they have these incredible physiques, and they are demonstrating these unique isolation movements, and they've built an incredible physique, not with those fancy exercises. They built their physique with heavy compound movements. So once again, the heavy basics, barbells, dumbbells, heavy cables, with the basic exercises. Again, if you want to add the 90 degrees, you're going to get even more out of it, but stick to the basics to build a natural, strong, muscular physique rather than focusing so much on those unique isolation exercises. I think something that's interesting is in this era of social media dominance, we also have an era where people in our society and culture are as unhealthy as they've ever been, especially in the US and other parts of the world. And this is not a coincidence. People are spending way too much time on social media. They're not active. They're drinking too much alcohol. They're not eating healthy. They have too much stress. They're maybe abusing pre-workout and caffeine. And as a result, they have high levels of inflammation in their bodies. And if you have high levels of inflammation and you're not living healthy, your endocrine function is going to be totally out of whack, and your natural hormones are not going to be optimized. Your testosterone levels are going to be low. Your estrogen levels are going to be jacked up. Your cortisol levels are going to be probably overly elevated as well. And trying to gain muscle mass when your body is not healthy and your endocrine function is not as it should be, good luck with that. You're not going to be able to build a good physique. If you live healthy, if you train proper, and you're reducing those levels of inflammation in your body, you're probably going to have decent levels of testosterone naturally. And as a result, you're going to be able to build a pretty good physique doing it the all natural way rather than feeling like you have to resort to steroids. So we have this unique combination. First off, we have people trying to emulate their favorite fitness influencers and failing to get the physique that they want. But you also have this other issue where we live in this kind of snowflake mentality culture where everyone wants their results handed to them on a golden platter and silver trim. They don't want to have to put in the work, the effort, the discipline, the dedication, the intensity that it takes to build a good physique naturally, and they just want those shortcuts. And unfortunately, that's oftentimes why people do resort to steroids. Now, I didn't cover any of the possible risks and the side effects of steroids. There are dozens of them. There's plenty of articles. There's plenty of videos, people discussing the potential downfalls of steroids. I highly recommend people look into that before they ever consider using steroids. Because like I said, once again, I will never advocate steroid usage for anyone. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's healthy. I will never train any of my clients or push them to use steroids. I'll never use it myself. But instead, I think the point here is that if you train properly, if you live a healthy lifestyle, and if you use the optimal training methods like the 90-degree eccentric isometric methodology that I've laid out in other videos, I'll have those links below, I think you'll be very satisfied with the results that you'll get. And once again, you won't feel the need to resort to steroids. So use 90-degree eccentric isometrics instead of steroids. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out this other one. I think you'll find it just as informative.